Is what you're selling as a business well known about? How does your business do it better than others? Okay, because in the majority of cases, you're not going to be the only show in town.
How does the algorithm see that? Is that about the click rate, or is that about the quality of the content? The inclusion of ChatGPT. Talk to me about the influence of that now on the market.
With the advent of ChatGPT, I mean, it just completely upended, everybody's worlds, in many, many ways, including the search world. And for the very, very first time in its existence, Google was actually caught on the hop.
All right. So Dan, first question for you off the rank, right? For business owners listening, what does channel management actually mean in practical terms?
Well, it's a really, really important part of business, and unfortunately, Lawrence, there's not enough people paying attention to this. Some people might consciously be doing something about channel management, some people are doing it on an unconscious level. Essentially what it is basically looking at how does your business actually go about, what are the tactics that it can actually pull on to actually acquire more customers. Okay, so there's many, many different types of businesses out there. I mean, typically, most of the businesses that I work with, they're in the financial services spaces. So we're looking at very, very multi-channel, complex user journeys there. And the best place that you should really be starting in terms of channel management is by looking at three key layers, okay? So you need to be looking at your traffic, okay? So getting people to your website, okay? That's the first step of channel management. And you need to be looking at your user journeys as part of that. So once they come to your website, what's actually happening on the website? Are they bouncing? Are they staying there for 2 or 3 minutes? Are they filling out forms? Are they engaging? Then you need to be looking at conversion, okay? So I'm not necessarily talking about money in the bank, but I'm talking about getting them to take action on what you want them to take action on. So that might be filling out an inquiry form, could be a request a call, could be download a brochure, something like that. And then it becomes about revenue, okay? So when it comes to those types of things, once you acquire a customer, what do they do after that, okay? Like how long do they actually stay with you for? Are you a SaaS business? Are you on a subscription model? Do they just come in, pay for something and then go? Or do they stay for a very, very long time? So all of these different things need to be conscious decisions and conscious things that you look at in terms of channel management. So there's a lot more than what people think. Can we just expand on that a little bit? So what type of channels are you referring to? So Google? Definitely. Oh, absolutely, yeah. So Google's, definitely something that I've got a lot of experience in. I've been doing Google Ads account management for about 20 years now. So all the way when it was back to manual bidding and manual management, it's changed a lot, but it's still very, very important. I think the key thing about channel management really is about understanding your customer. So we're talking about demand capture and demand generation. Okay, those are two very, very key things. Okay, is what you're selling as a business well known about? Okay, do people actually know about what you're actually selling? Are you selling the pet rock? Okay, so if you were selling a pet rock, nobody's actually looking for that. Okay, you've got to generate that demand. You've got to generate that interest. So that's when you might start looking at, above the line strategies, or you might start looking at digital above the line strategies. Okay, so Meta, Twitter, Snapchat, all of those different channels. Okay, that's what's going to be able to get you eyeballs on the product or service that you're actually selling. Now, if you're in a industry that is very, very well known and there's a huge demand for it, I would be starting with Google, absolutely, because that is demand capture. So you'll see straight away there the nuance between demand capture and demand generation. And Google, because it is demand capture, it's always going to be your lowest hanging fruit. Yes, it might be expensive, but it will, convert at a much, much better, rate compared to Meta, compared to Snapchat, all of those other engagement level channels. Yeah.
Is there an ethos about doing too much, like being in on every channel, being on social like Instagram, Facebook, Google, search, SEO, landing pages? So for a young business owner, right, or an early business owner, startup, in that first 12 months, what would be the priority focus? So I think what you're saying is identify your market.
Yeah.
Is there a market? Where are they? Build an avatar. Would that be right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you need to know who your customer is. Yes. And if you don't, then you need to start that journey of analyzing exactly what happens on your website and what types of audiences as well, because sometimes we don't just have one audience. Okay, sometimes we might have multiple audiences that we're trying to play to. So understanding the nuance between everything and treating everything separately from that point of view.
Give me an idea what you mean by nuance.
Nuance is dying, okay? People are getting far too obsessed with what I call vanity metrics, okay?
I love that too.
Yeah.
Paul Mosey says that a lot as well.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
used
yeah.
to.
Far too, at the end of the day, okay, why do we go into business? We go into business to make money, okay? That's the real reason why people are going into business. Of course, you will, hopefully in the majority of cases, you'll actually be interested in what you're selling, okay? And you must have a deep understanding. Maybe it's a problem that you've actually tried to solve yourself and you've actually solved it through this product or service. So I think, that's really, really important to try and figure out. But if there's, a young person, I think obviously, you want to be able to get your name out there. Okay. So you want to be able to distinguish yourself, in terms of the different channels that you're, essentially playing on. So it's very, very important that you've got clarity over who you are and make sure that comes through as being very, very authentic online as well, especially if you are being the face of the business. That's really, really important. But at the end of the day, you've got to make sure that you're making money. Okay. So you do need to try multiple channels. Okay. So like I said, if you want that demand generation, you got to look at your socials. And then if you want to look at your demand capture, you've got to mix that in with some Google ads as well. And then just make sure that you've got a really, really sharp focus on numbers. And if you don't have a sharp focus on numbers, get somebody who does, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, 100%. Look, if I had $1 for every marketing agency person who focused on CPL, right, the vanity metric that I hate.
Probably my least favorite one, yeah.
Yeah, because it's about quantity. It's not about quality, right? Like you and I have spoken before about, taking a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead. That's all I really care about.
Yeah.
So I'm not really interested in that. So, what you're also saying in that is what I'm hearing is, what's your offer?
Yep.
So if you're going to invest in advertising, what's the offer?
Yeah.
Like what have you got to offer? What problem are you solving? And how does your customer resonate with that, right? Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. And how does your business do it better than others? Okay. Because in the majority of cases, you're not going to be the only show in town, so it's really, really important to how you actually distinguish yourself compared to, your competitors. Are you, competing on premium services, or are you competing on price? I would advise a lot of people to stay away from price because it's a race to the bottom, okay, especially in really, really, competitive markets. So I think that is really important. At the end of the day, I mean, when it comes down to CPL, so cost per lead, that's, a metric that thankfully I think is going away now. I think people are starting to become more nuanced in their thinking around channel management, and they are becoming a lot more engaged, because I often say that, a cheap lead that doesn't convert is actually the most expensive lead you'll ever buy.
Oh, 100%. It's the resource that goes behind it.
Exactly, yeah. So let's say, for example, I've got, some clients out there who are doing, a 10%, 12%, 15% conversion rate on Google leads, okay?
Yeah.
Now, they might be paying 5x more for those Google leads compared to their Meta leads, okay? Now, if you want more volume, and sales teams typically want a lot more volume, okay? They want to be hungry. They want to make sure that their pipeline is bursting. If those Meta leads, those social leads are only converting at 1%, okay, compared to like Google's 10%, means you have to work 10 times harder for that lead. And what you can typically see then is the morale of the salesperson will then go down if they're having to chase all these Meta leads all the time, because they're harder to work, So it's all about understanding, okay, well, what is the variance between my cost per lead on Google versus socials, and then the variance of my conversion rate of those leads, okay? And then you kind of extrapolate out from there.
I always think this is psychology to sales, right? No, I understand that. But I think if you have a new sales team or a new agent that you bring into the team who doesn't know your product very well, I think call volume is really, really important. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So go after CPL, go for value in terms of how many leads or quantity, right? Like lots of it.
Yeah.
And then what happens is when they become experienced and they start to acquire a relatively healthy conversion rate, you notice that they close more deals with less calls. So yes. they start to figure out top, middle, and bottom of the funnel and know that all of their investment and time and resource and follow-up should go from middle to the bottom of the funnel. But you got to build a team on, you just got to give them a whole bunch of quantity just so they can get through the scripting.
Yes.
They can get used to the pitch and just get some activity underway. And that's normally where we start them.
Yes.
But so I want to wind back to something in terms of channel before I jump on to, I want to talk about conversion a little bit, because I think people are pretty, they're strung out about conversion at the moment from some of the sales people that I speak to, or sales managers and leaders that I speak to. But in terms of channel, so we've got, look, we know that Google's relatively high converting, right? I see some changes in that quality, by the way, but I think that's high converting. So people, if they were going to invest, they should probably go there first. If they needed quantity, they would lean into Meta. Would that be accurate? Now,
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So now you've got SEO, which is always a challenge, right? It's like everyone keeps telling me, "Oh, SEO takes so long."
Yeah.
And then, but let's just hover on SEO for a bit.
Sure.
How important is it?
It's super important. It's changing. I mean, it always has been changing, but now, with, the advent of ChatGPT and all these LLMs, becoming a bigger and bigger player in the search space, SEO is really, really crucial. It should, if you look at the principles of SEO, okay, which is around, making it easy for you to be found, but about writing great content, okay, you should be doing that anyway. As a byproduct of everything that you do online, okay, on your website, you should be creating outstanding thought leader content. And if you're doing that, even if you don't have a very, very specific SEO strategy, you're doing a really good job with that anyway. And then there's all the off-page stuff and the link building and everything else that comes in with it.
Yeah.
But SEO is absolutely, very, very important. Yeah.
So that content delivery, which is getting easier for marketing teams, by the way, with the inclusion of things like ChatGPT, it's a pretty good copywriter, right? So if they were to generate copy as an SEO strategy, how does the algorithm see that? Is that about the click rate, or is that about the quality of the content, or is it about the frequency of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. So it really, the frequency of it, which is basically the freshness of the content, has always been an important, feature within the Google algorithm. And then, of course, the click-through rate. I mean, at the end of the day, Google wants sticky users, okay? It wants them coming back. And how are they going to come back? Well, if they find Google useful, which means they're clicking on links, okay? Now, Google obviously doesn't make any money, through SEO, but that's where it has built its reputation in the past before the ads came along. So it's around, creating that, outstanding user experience. So it really is a combination of, can you get people to your website by, your meta titles and your meta descriptions? So what's your click-through rate of that going to be? This is a part of the ranking as well. The quality of that content, so how long people are actually spending on your website as well. Again, if you've got Google Analytics installed, Google can see all of this anyway. So, it's really about creating not just clicks to your website, but keeping people on your website, getting them to engage with your business, and then keep on coming back as well through that fresh content. So, yeah, super important.
Yeah, cool. So enter Sam Altman and his really hushed tone voice as he speaks to media. The inclusion of ChatGPT, right? Talk to me about the influence of that now on the market and what's sort of changing over the last couple of years. Because search and advertising is coming. We know that.
Yes.
It's launched in the US.
Yes.
It's coming here. It'll be here this year, probably soon.
Yes.
How would businesses get prepped for that?
Well, I think they should already be prepping for it. At the very, very least, you need to be looking at your CRM data. You need to be looking at your Google Analytics data and finding out. You probably are already getting ChatGPT traffic, and you're probably already getting traffic.
Yeah, we are getting some. Yeah.
What I've seen anyway from the clients that I work with is the engagement rate when you get a person coming to you from ChatGPT link. The engagement rate is off the charts. Okay, it is typically 2 or 3x what I've typically seen on Google, which is absolutely phenomenal.
When you say 2 or 3x, what do you mean by 2 or 3x?
Okay, so you can look at things like time on site, engagement rates, but also as well inquiries. Okay, so if you're a service-based business, obviously you want people to inquire, reach out, maybe book an appointment. I've seen those rates 3x what I've seen on Google, which is, already at a very, very high baseline. So to see that level of engagement. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, okay? People typically only spend, a few seconds on a Google, search results page, okay?
Yeah.
They'll type in their query, although this is changing as well because of Gemini. They'll type in their query, flights to Bali. The first thing they see, or maybe the second thing they see, they'll click on the link and then they've left the Google experience, okay? Now they're on WebJet or a Flight Centre, wherever they might be. That's not happening with ChatGPT. People are spending maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes working through their various different prompts and getting different answers and refining things before they actually find out what they're looking for. And then they will click on a link, and they've essentially condensed what used to be 2-3 hours of research into 5 or 10 minutes. So they're ready to go. They don't really need to click on 20 different links, and shop around, etc. It's going to take, those links that it gets from ChatGPT and the sources that it gets from ChatGPT as almost gospel. Right or wrong. But I mean, that's typically what we're seeing. Yeah.
So small business, they should be focused on that and doing that. I guess if they want a low CPL, if they don't have a huge budget, lean into something that's cost effective like Meta.
Absolutely.
Learn the process, get to understand it, and then pivot from there into, say, Google.
Yes.
Get prepared for GPT because that's coming and they'll be advertising on other AI platforms. We know that they will be the first and pioneer that. How does this affect Google though, right? Because I think about when Google first started, the search function was pretty clunky. It got better, but it was based on terms. There was not a lot of specificity in the search function algorithm, right? So I know Larry and Sergey are back in the business. They're actually living they're in Dallas now, I think. And they're back in the business, right? Because they're trying to re-engineer this whole thing. But where does that leave Google? Because I don't use Google for search anymore. I use GPT for search.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that influence over the next sort of 12 to 24 months?
I think if we, take a step back over like what's been happening over the last 10 years, and if you look particularly at Google, they've invested a huge amount of resources in AI long before ChatGPT came along. So I think it was about 10 years ago now, they started to release the first sophisticated models of smart bidding, around keyword management and things like that. So that in a sense was AI. It was just kind of like, behind the scenes AI. It was kind of a black box. You didn't really know what was going on. And you would give it some signals. It was really clunky and not too reliable at the beginning. But, they were one of the first to really take a stab at this. And then with the advent of ChatGPT, I mean, it just completely upended, everybody's worlds, in many, many ways, including the search world. And for the very, very first time, in its existence, Google was actually caught on the hop, I would say.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, like you've seen so many of, Google's competitors down through the years try to penetrate the market. I mean, you've got Bing, which, I mean, like, Microsoft got plenty of money, but they were never able to even get close to Google on that, with the exception maybe of the US market.
And not to mention just the investment alone, right?
Yeah.
Like the exponential growth in that vertical, in that AI vertical sector, we've never seen that before.
No.
We're talking about hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars invested over a short period of time.
Yes.
That has never happened before. Not even in the .com or the internet era, right? Back in 92. But so this is like, man, it's kind of cool and scaring the shit out of my businesses all at the same time.
Yeah, I think, I mean, just as an extension of that topic around Google, there was no doubt that they, were caught on the hop by ChatGPT and by what's going on in that space.
Well, they had the market. They had all the data. Absolutely. No one else had as much data as they did.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they cornered that market.
Yeah.
And they were sitting there pretty comfortable.
Yeah.
Until.
And the one thing that I will say though is, I mean, like, they've released Gemini 3 now, and I mean, it's actually a phenomenal model. I'm now using it more and more often than I am with ChatGPT. I'd say I'm probably like split 50-50. Or maybe a little bit less. Sometimes I'll use Claude, but mainly just Gemini and ChatGPT. I do think that they've made a lot of inroads. I mean, even if you look at the market share now, like they've managed to pull it back.
They've pulled back a lot with 2.5.
They've pulled back a lot, for sure.
3, yeah.
So you can never rule them out. They definitely got spooked. But if you look at the amount of money that has been thrown into AI now, even from a resources perspective in Silicon Valley, I mean, like Meta are poaching guys from OpenAI and they're paying them millions, which is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's crazy. We're in the wrong city.
That's never we are. Yeah,
it's crazy. So talk to me about what I hear from a lot of young entrepreneurs, startup business founders, right, is speed. Right, speed. When that lead hits the CRM, the business, how important is speed to get to that lead, even if it's Google or Meta, right? We know Meta's lower quality, top of the funnel. Google sometimes is top of the funnel as well. It's sometimes for us, we
depending on the keyword,
depending on the keyword, because I read this article from Harvard Business School.
Harvard Business School, 2011.
Yeah, exactly. I read that.
Yeah,
which is it diminishes really, really quickly.
I think after 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy. So they did, I think it was 60 seconds, 3 minutes,
Yeah.
6 minutes, 8 minutes, and then
Never.
24 hours.
Yeah.
And they're basically gone.
Yeah, they're gone. Yeah.
The chances of getting them back. And what happened? The agent starts calling them, following up them twice a day for 5 to 10 days. It's just a waste of time.
And resources. Yeah.
So do you agree with that? How important is that? And what are some of the solutions that sort of young founders can sort of deploy in their sales teams, right?
Yeah, 100% agree with it. I don't think there can really be any doubt. I mean, you've just, cited the Harvard Business School example, which is long before, any of these discussions around AI or anything like that. Okay, this is just basic sales 101. I remember when I first came to Australia in 2010. I'll always remember this. I came over here, I'm getting set up, I've come over from Europe and getting all my utilities set up. Okay. So I came across this company called iSelect.
Yeah.
And
David Opani. He was the founder, by the way. He's an old business partner of mine.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So iSelect was actually a client that I was working on at the time with the agency that I was employed with. Now I was on iSelect and I thought this is awesome. Like, I can get my car insurance, my home insurance, everything squared away.
Yep.
Just have to fill out a form, do a little bit of comparison. So I was doing some car insurance quotes and I submitted it and I was still filling out the secondary page and my phone rang. I answered the phone. It was iSelect.
Employ that person.
Now, that was their model, and to
Yeah.
an extent it still is now, although I think they're being a little bit more picky and choosy about which ones they actually go after based on where they are in the funnel or the channel.
Yeah.
But I was astonished by that. I actually said it to the guy on the phone as well. I was like, you are quick. I haven't even finished my journey here. 15 years later, I'm still with that same car insurance company. Okay, so what's the LTV on that? Like the lifetime value on that is just absolutely phenomenal just because they got to me first. And here's the reality that I think a lot of people don't actually think about or even consider is that, yes, we live in this world where we can shop around really, really quickly. We can do our research really, really quickly, okay? But I don't want to be speaking to 15 different vendors, okay? I don't want to speak to 15 different car insurance companies. And if you're going to be the first one to call me and engage with me and you're reasonably convincing and I trust you, well, then of course I'm going to do business with you rather than the second or third guy. They're going to be too late. So speed to lead is absolutely crucial. Luckily, I've always said, Lawrence, that speed to lead up until about 3-4 years ago, speed to lead was probably the most difficult problem to solve in sales. Okay, there's all sorts of
Is that because of the human factor though, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can have an army of Alex Hormozis out there, right, on the phones.
Yeah.
Okay. If they're only working 9 to 5, and if your clients are working 9 to 5 and cannot pick up the phone, it doesn't matter how good that army of Hormozis are. Okay?
Just imagine the increase in flannel shirt sales. Though. It would go through the roof, right?
Absolutely. So it doesn't matter how good your sales team is if they're not able to talk to people. Okay, you've got to be able to get people to pick up the phone, and you and I, we've discussed this before in the past. It's so bloody hard these days.
All right, so let me throw this at you. All right, no, I get that, and I agree with it. Don't get me wrong. No harm, no foul. But here's the thing: I find customers don't really want to speak to a human at this time. Not until they're ready to make a decision. They want all the data before they speak to, old Timmy in sales. Because Timmy's going to circumvent the call. He's not going to give them the price. He's going to try and close them hard. He's going to be a little bit pushy. He's going to try and lead them in a certain direction, and the trust goes down. Right. So talk to me about what you see in the market, because I think I see this in real time, right, when I'm listening and auditing calls. Yeah. And I've been auditing calls since the 1930s, right? So, man, millions of them. And I hear customers not wanting to speak to sales agents who call them too quickly. Yeah. Why? Yeah. Because everyone is busier than the president. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you got to consider where they are at in the funnel as well. Yeah. Okay. So, again, we'll go back to the example of Google versus Meta. Two very, very popular, channels. If somebody has been on Google and they're, looking for, a solution to a problem, and they fill out an inquiry form on your website and then you call them, the chances of that happening are probably a lot lower, okay? Because they have high intent and they've already inquired, okay? Rather than, somebody who's on Meta doom scrolling on the toilet You know, are they really going to be interested in speaking to somebody within 5 minutes? Probably not. What I think is, you know, really useful is having, like, you know, a couple of different steps to your engagement. Okay, so yes, you want to get people's contact details, otherwise you're not going to get anything. But offer them an appointment, okay, and then you can start gauging or request a callback, something like that, even if it doesn't have to be a hard appointment. That will further qualify them based upon their intent. Okay, if they're just filling out an inquiry form and then doing nothing else, versus filling out an inquiry form and then filling out, like, you know, a booking appointment slot, you know, those people, they want to talk to you. They've literally just told you. Okay, so if you don't already have something like that on your website, I would encourage business owners to have something like that. So it really, really is important that we have a, you know, obviously have a holistic view of where your money is coming from, but you need to also consider as well, and the sales team need to consider as well, you know, this individual, where have they come from? Have they come from Meta? What did they do? What did they do on my website before they actually close the deal? And I think that's really important. Further to that now, because of AI and the advent of AI, you can now very, very quickly and easily, using various different platforms, GHL is one of the platforms that we use as well, is create an AI appointment setter. Okay, so the lead comes into your system. Okay, let's say it's 10 o'clock at night. Even if your sales team is working, you're not going to call that person at 10 o'clock at night.
No.
So you do, you know, a speed to lead appointment setting agent, which is fully trained on your business, knows all of your FAQs, the pricing, everything like that, and just ask them 2, maybe 3 qualification questions to further qualify them, and then you can re-engage them through an appointment slot there as well.
Are you talking about a fully engageable AI agent or something similar to a bot? Maybe where it's got the data and they can book the appointment just through that application.
Yeah, I think it's good to have, you know, a human-centric approach to that as well. Okay, so the bot talks like a human. Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Again, you know, SMS is where I would be leaning more into this rather than, like, you know, like a voice agent.
Yeah.
The SMS it's not as intrusive as a phone call. Like I said, you're not going to call somebody, like, you know, at 8, 9 o'clock at night, but you might send them a text and you might get a response. Okay, I've seen this with other clients as well. Typically, the engagement rates and the read rates and the response rates tend to be higher in the evening times up until about 9 o'clock. So that's something that you got to factor in. But people less likely to answer the phone.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like from our experience, that's certainly the case, right? And you're right. Look, they might not be sitting on the toilet. They could be in a chair. But, you know, they send through an inquiry. We call them the next day, but they're busy.
Yeah.
So we're calling them just out of the blue, expecting them to give us 15 minutes of their time.
Yeah.
That doesn't work anymore.
No.
Absolutely doesn't work. Okay, so I want to hit on something that we're experiencing, we have experienced over the years, right? And I call it bleeding money, right? So, well, that's mildly aggressive, Lawrence. But, you know, so we advertise, we pay a CPL of, say, $50. We get 100 leads. We only get to speak to 10 of those people.
Yeah.
Out of those 10, we take 5 of them through to stage 2.
Yeah.
Out of those 5, we convert 1. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a whole bunch of businesses, especially SMEs in Australia, in America, wherever, who kind of run that conversion rate, because that's an old school model, right? An architecture. I get that. So if I was to get away from that and move into this new style, deploying an AI, where would I start? Like,
yeah, well, you need to know what your funnel looks like. Okay, so you need to understand.
So I've got all the data.
You've got all the data.
All the
right,
data.
Okay, yeah.
We've downloaded 8,500 calls.
Yes.
We have all the reporting.
Yes.
We've transcribed every single call.
Yes.
We've AI'd it out. You know, we've run the models. We've done all of that.
Yeah.
So because it's risk, right? So okay, so we're getting X amount of leads now. That's great. The business is sustainable. You know, it's profitable. No, I see businesses go all in too quickly. And their existing revenue stream falls over. Yeah. And I think that's a mistake. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think in terms of like AI and bridging the gap between marketing and sales, I think, you know, the AI appointment setter is one of the best ways to do it because it solves that speed to lead. Okay. If you've identified, and this is very, very common, okay, you know, you will have a look at your sales team and you'll have a look at, okay, how many of these leads are they actually closing? Divided by the number of leads that they're speaking to, okay? Because they're not going to close a lead that they can't speak to, okay? But, you know, that's a good way of actually of ascertaining how good they are as an actual salesperson, okay? But if everybody is like dialing out as quickly as possible, let's say within, 40 to 60 minutes, what's the problem there? Well, the problem is it's just taken too long, okay? So the speed to lead hasn't been there. And speed to lead is always, this is why I call it like the biggest problem in sales, is because it's not scalable. Okay, if you're getting live leads coming in during the day, and you're getting leads coming in at night and on the weekend, and nobody wants to call the weekend leads because people from Friday night have gone stone cold. This is really, really important. And having that AI agent there to warm them up, ask them the extra qualification questions, and book in an appointment, that changes their world
for the human.
For the human, yes, absolutely, yeah, it changes their world because all of a sudden they don't need to chase as much anymore. Okay, they just need to turn up to the appointments. They're warm and they're ready to go, and they're expecting your call as well. So yeah, get the job done. So
you're playing around with this AI appointment setter, right?
Yeah.
Give me some feedback on it. How good is it?
I think if it's used, first of all, the first step is, getting buy-in from the sales team. Okay. I remember when I started doing AI appointment agents, it scared the shit out of the sales team. Okay. They were like, oh, they're coming for our jobs. I'm like, no. Not at all.
Well, they're coming for humanity, people. Don't worry about your job. We'll be dead.
Yeah. So it was more about getting them to realize, okay, because a lot of them we push them back and saying, like, AI cannot do sales. And we're like, we're not talking about AI doing sales here. We're about getting AI to help you speak 100%. To more clients. That's it.
Yeah.
After that, you take it from there. Okay. Speak to the client. It's your baby. Okay?
So my goal and my pitch when I presented to the sales team just before Christmas for our Christmas party, I said my goal as CEO is to get 5 appointments in your calendar every day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Now, if I can do that, you will quadruple your income.
Yeah.
Like just focus on that. So put the ego and the insecurity to one side and just focus on that alone. Absolutely. Because the AI is not closing any deals.
Nah. And it's really hard. I mean, like, it's really, I've seen some of my clients in the past, like, 10, 20, 30% contact rate, as in like they're only speaking to like 30% of their leads.
Ours is less than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really, really hard. Like this is going south, not north.
Yeah.
So, businesses have
That's been happening for a few years.
It has been happening for a few years. And now, like, on the latest iPhone, you can actually screen calls. So, it's going to continue to be more and more challenging. Yeah. So I think from that perspective, this is why SMS is so beautiful. Okay, everybody will get a text message to their phone every single day. Okay, they're used to reading it, they're used to opening it. Okay, they're used to also, if it's their mates, they're used to replying to it. Okay, and if it's clear that this SMS AI agent is two-way, it's bi-directional, well then they will engage with it. Okay, specifically if they have just filled out an inquiry form and 30 seconds later they've got a text message. It's very, very obvious there's no spam considerations there. So that's really, really important as well. We've seen, there was probably in our highest, performing case we saw in a solar company that we worked with on an AI agent. They moved from 27% contact rate, which is still pretty decent, 27% to 78% within 3 weeks. Contact rate, which is
pretty fancy.
That is, I don't like using the word game changer. I know you don't like using the word Prius.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
well, did he just work in a Prius track before me? Okay.
Oh my God, we'll shut this down.
10 points. Yep. Cool. Okay, great. Oh, yeah. So we did this, right? We downloaded from Aircall. We use Aircall. Downloaded over 8,300 calls, and I asked the AI to transcribe all those calls and then look at the sentiment, right? And we broke it down into 10 categories. The highest, most negative objection handle that we had, which was 3x more than any other metric, was I don't have time to talk to you. On the one, these are the ones that answered. Imagine who's not answering.
Yeah.
So that was a big barrier to entry for us.
Yeah. So then the call will just end from there, or like, do you guys typically try and like get them, as in like ask them a question like when would you like us to call you back, that type of thing? Or
so they book in the appointment, right, on the phone. We always teach people to book it in while you're on the phone so you get commitment.
Of course,
53% of those bookings do not answer. 53%. That's the number.
Yeah. Do you send out reminders before?
Yep.
Yeah.
They get one 24 hours in 1 hour and then 15 minutes or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So, but that's not working anymore. That's more stuff in their inbox on their handset, right? So I think everyone needs to sort of re-engineer and think about their market and specifically their avatar. What type of person are they? How old are they?
Yeah.
How many kids do they have? Are they at soccer on the weekend? Are they not?
Yeah.
Are they out boozing all night and sleeping until 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah.
Right. Are they working 12 hours a day? 75 hours a week? 72 hours. Why would I say that? 75 hours a week. Let's round it up. But you know what I mean? Like, I think we need to think about that. Yeah. So let's talk about the future, right? Before the robots come in and take over. So how did... really soon, right? But let me be a shareholder and cash out before that happens, please. No. So where do you see it going, right? Because there's a lot of talk about AI taking over marketing agencies. Talk to me about that specifically. Let's start there. Yeah, how about we start there?
First thing I will say here is I am not a futurist, and I think where we are at the moment with AI is we're not even at the beginning of the wave yet. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult to predict. And there's lots of predictions out there. Apparently we're all going to live until we're 500 years old. Not sure how I feel about that. But at the end of the day, what I've experienced with AI is it's really, really good at doing data heavy and admin heavy tasks at scale. Okay. Stuff that we could only dream of in terms of efficiency there. I mean, in terms of workflow, in terms of AI conversations, the AI appointment setting agent can literally have 5, 6, 7,000 conversations going at exactly the same time. And it's infinitely scalable. Okay. So that's super exciting. Okay. I think what we're going to see with marketing agencies, like a lot of other businesses, they're going to get smaller. Okay. So I don't think we're even going to see in 10 years time, I don't think we're even going to see these companies around the world, like software companies with 20,000 employees. It's just not going to happen. Okay. We'll be down to thousands or maybe hundreds. Okay. Because all of the admin and the data analytics functions are going to be, outsourced to AI. Within marketing agencies, and I've been working, as a marketing consultant now for 20 years, and data is a massive part of my job. I need to understand, the numbers better than my clients in many, many cases. And I need to work very, very closely with my clients on the data, okay, and almost extracting what the story is actually coming out of, that data. That's the bit that AI is not very good at, in my opinion, at the moment. But like I said, we're at the very beginning of this, and I would not be surprised if it did get to that stage where it's almost as good as we are, or maybe even better. And then, consultants are on the hook there as well, But I think the exciting thing for marketing agencies and marketing consultants is that the admin side of your business can be taken care of almost entirely, okay, with AI. I mean, that's already here, okay? And if you're not already doing it, well, then you can do it, okay? You just need to speak to somebody who can actually get an AI audit done for you and then implement it, okay? That's going to free up your team to do the more human-centric tasks, okay? It's also going to remove a lot of hours out of your business as well that you were previously paying for. And what does that mean? It means you can take on more work.
Yep.
Okay? So previously, maybe an account manager in a marketing agency. I mean, I know some marketing agencies and they've got 100 clients for an account manager, which is just ridiculous. I mean, you're not actually doing any
We've
work.
never had success with any marketing agency.
It's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yep.
I mean, nobody can manage that.
Yeah.
So just to give you an example, in my own career, 10 clients was the max number of clients that I could kind of work with because I work on my own and, as a consultant. So I was limited by the number of hours that were in a day. Okay. But now I can work with 15, 16, 17 clients, okay? Because so much of my job is analyzing data, which can now be done in 1 hour compared to 4 hours in spreadsheets of death, okay? So I've actually, without working more, I've had more time to actually dedicate to my clients and really, work on what is the data actually telling me here? What's the story behind the data, okay? Because at the end of the day, that's really what the clients are interested in seeing because that's what's going to move the needle.
I'll get your take on this, and I've said this in my companies a few times, right? Because of the inclusion and deployment execution of AI across a whole bunch of elements within the workflow of sales, for example. In terms of advertising marketing, AI-driven advertising campaigns, AI-driven images, AI-driven video, right? I see the organic component of marketing increasing in value.
Yes.
Right? I think if that was an asset, I see it becoming more of a valuable asset, because when the market's flooded with fake ads, fake testimonials, and fake everything, the organic element of how you deliver your product and your service and your company messaging and your mission statement to the market, I think will that collateral will increase. What's your take on that over the next few years?
You know, what you've just touched on there, Lawrence, is the scary side of AI, okay? Yep. The deep fakes, okay? Yep. The fake content. I don't think we're there yet, but I don't think we're too far away from living in a world where we don't know what's real when we're looking on our screens. And this is going to be a big challenge for all of the AI companies out there, okay, to tighten the net on that, because if you lose trust,
when you say big companies, do you mean the social media and advertising companies? Yeah, I agree.
So if you look at, some of the early steps that were already taken, I mean, like, with Twitter, or X as it's called these days, the verified profiles, okay? That's a series of steps that, that account holder has to go through to communicate to its audience that, hey, we're fair game, we are who we say we are. I don't know what that's going to look like going forward, because it's going to get super complex.
I'm assuming they'll build an AI to police the AI, right?
It probably will end.
That's probably what will happen.
Yeah. I mean, already, I mean, like, even with, going back to the AI appointment centers, I mean, we've got like multiple AIs actually running there in the background, so they've all got different jobs in relation to that. But yeah, I mean, you're going to have AIs talking to AIs. It's literally already happening. Yeah.
Also the impact is huge. I remember seeing some micro content online that was happening in Minnesota in terms of those protests, and half of those videos were fake.
It's incredible.
They weren't even real.
Yeah,
and they were very biased to one side, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of super scary. It's super scary. But there was a guy who broke it down, and you could see small errors in the video content, right? When he put it under a microscope, but the average person won't see it. Yeah. But you're saying that it'll get to a point where you won't even be able to see that.
Exactly.
It'll be that good.
Again, because we're only like 3 years deep into this.
I got an email last week. There's a company in America doing some fundraising. So, I think they sent out a blanket email just trying to raise funds to do the first AI feature film, which they'll release this year. So imagine the quality of that. I remember seeing, was it C-Dance, owned by ByteDance, 2.0 come out, and I just went, whoa. And I checked out a whole bunch of video, and it was so good, I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah.
No, that was scary.
Yeah. This is the way it's going. It's just going to get better and better. The clarity of the videos, the images, the hallucinations of the AI agents running these, movies, it's just going to get sharper and sharper. And yes, it will get to a stage where, like, what's human and what's not.
Yeah. So as we move towards the end, I've got a question for you about the future. So for founders listening today and want a practical move to improve performance immediately in terms of leveraging artificial intelligence, what are the 3 things that you think they should consider?
Is this in a world where they're not using it at all, or within their business?
Correct.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I would say,
because I think what's happening is they're using an agency or a third party, some type of third party. And with AI, they think they can do it all themselves now, bring it all back in, save that money, right? Where would you start?
I would, again, going back to the point that I made before, I think one of the most powerful applications of AI, and I use this all the time, is around data analysis.
Reporting,
So doing it faster, but also it's getting better at the storytelling as well. It's still not as good as the humans, because there's so much nuance to these things, and that's why you still need to be speaking to somebody who's experienced, who's got, like, a lot of experience in terms of, like, telling that story and identifying flaws within the story that AI actually might give you. So I think everybody knows at this point anyway that when you're using AI, you don't just take what it says as gospel. Especially the first answer, you've got to, like, reprompt and reprompt again. So as long as you're doing that, but I think, data analysis, okay? Because it's so hard to do at scale within any business.
Yeah.
And you can just strip out your data, even from your, your CRM, whether you're using Salesforce or HubSpot, and dump it into Gemini or ChatGPT and start asking it the key questions that any business owner would be asking. Okay, so what's my most profitable channel? Like, should I kill off Facebook? Like, what are but also as well, like when you're asking those questions, because ChatGPT in particular is very has a tendency to validate everything that you say. So ask it for the counter argument to it as well. So if we were to think about removing Facebook altogether, what impact would that actually have downstream? Okay, on the sales team, and what do we need to factor in there? Can we take a more nuanced or balanced approach? So I think asking the questions, that's when you tend to get good results out of these LLMs. It's garbage in, garbage out, and quality in, quality out.
So data reporting, analysis,
absolutely,
get that. Number two,
admin. Absolutely, absolutely. You've got to be able to look at
boring, repetitive tasks that a human doesn't need to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like now you can, I've been a massive advocate of recording your video meetings, with Fathom or Fireflies.
We definitely do that, yeah.
I think on most of my calls now, there's more AIs than there are humans in the room. But what's it doing? It's basically doing the EA's job now, okay? Taking the minutes of the meeting and then sending it out to everybody with a summary, bullet points, action items, and it can be brought into your task management platform or your CRM. That is phenomenal. I don't actually have to write down any of my notes anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's just unbelievable.
So
my
good.
handwriting is probably terrible if I could remember what it looked like.
Yeah.
So it's just like if you can get an hour back in your day on the admin side of things, okay, and everybody's got an admin side of their job, okay. If you can get an hour back every single day, extrapolate that over the entire year, it's ridiculous.
I agree. I think we have become more efficient in the business because of AI.
Yes.
Just from staff and team members using it.
Yeah.
Even if it's to write a really good quality email that's got 2 paragraphs in it, which would take them 7 minutes, now it takes them 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's really the difference.
It's crazy.
All right, so reporting, data analytics, administration, what's the third?
I would definitely, just because I'm such a huge advocate of helping sales teams to scale, I would absolutely have to say, the AI appointment setter. You have got to be doing that. If you're getting so many leads every single day, I would basically say, if you're getting any more than 200-300 leads a month, you've only got one salesperson, you need this. Okay, you absolutely need it, because at the end of the day, if most of your leads are coming in at nighttime, and he's at home, with the kids or maybe asleep or whatever, it's crickets until the morning, until he actually gets to call them. So you got to keep these leads warm and engaged until then, and book them in for an appointment. So AI appointment setting. You've got to be doing it. Yeah.
I like it. Speed to lead.
Speed to lead.
So if I'm driving in my Prius and I'm on hands-free, right?
Yeah.
I could just if you call me straight away, I'll buy the deal.
Yeah.
100%.
Of course.
Dan, thank you very much. I really do appreciate your time. If anyone's trying to hunt you down, stalk you,
yes,
where will they find you?
digitalbeats.com.au.
Doesn't have a Z though, right?
No, it does
Beats
not.
with an S.
And it's not a set of headphones or anything like that. That's So Digital Beats, BEATZ,
cool.
.com.au.
Great, appreciate you coming in.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate it, man.